Coordinates: 32 degrees 20 and 64 degrees 45, W, 32.333 degrees north 64.750 degrees west, 32.333, minus 64.750 Bermuda, 1,236 kilometers due north of the British Virgin Islands. Though typically referred to in the singular, Bermuda has 181 islands, the largest of these being Main Island. Bermuda's capital city is Hamilton. Bermuda is internally self-governing, with its constitution and cabinet of ministers selected from the elected members of the lower house of a parliament that enacts local laws. As the national government, the government of the United Kingdom is ultimately responsible for ensuring good governance within British overseas territories, and retains responsibility for defence and foreign relations. As of July 2018, it had a population of 71,176, making it the most populous of the British overseas territories. Bermuda's largest industries are offshore insurance, reinsurance, and tourism. Bermuda had one of the world's highest GDP per capita for most of the 20th century. Bermuda's climate is subtropical, primarily due to its chilly but mild winter temperatures. Unlike other designated subtropical areas, summers are also mild, with temperatures generally not rising above 30 degrees Celsius in the hottest months of July and August. Its climate also exhibits oceanic features similar to other oceanic islands and western coasts of continents in the northern hemisphere. Mean wind direction is from the west and carries warm, moist air from the ocean, ensuring relatively high humidity and stabilizing temperature. Bermuda lies in Hurricane Alley and thus is prone to severe weather. However, it receives some protection from a coral reef and its position at the north of the belt, which limits the direction and severity of approaching storms. Bermuda is named after the Spanish sailor Juan de Bermudez, who discovered the islands in 1505. An early appearance of the name in English literature is in Shakespeare's The Tempest, a play inspired by the wreck of the Sea Venture, though not set on the islands. Thou callest me up at midnight to fetch dew from the still vexed Bermudes. John Donne's poem The Storm uses the same idea. Compared to these stormies, death is but a qualm, hell somewhat lightsome, and the Bermuda calm. Bermuda was discovered in the early 1500s by Spanish explorer Juan de Bermudez. Bermuda had no indigenous population when it was discovered, nor during initial British settlement a century later. It was mentioned in Legatio Babylonica, published in 1511 by historian Pedro Martir de Anglria, and was included on Spanish charts of that year. Both Spanish and Portuguese ships used the islands as a replenishment spot to take on fresh meat and water. Shipwrecked Portuguese mariners are now thought to have been responsible for the 1543 inscription on Portuguese rock, previously called Spanish rock. Legends arose of spirits and devils, now thought to have stemmed from the calls of raucous birds and loud nocturnal noises from wild hogs. With its frequent storm-racked conditions and dangerous reefs, the archipelago became known as the Isle of Devils. Neither Spain nor Portugal attempted to settle it. For the next century, the island was frequently visited but not settled. The English began to focus on the New World, initially settling in Virginia, starting the 13 colonies. After the failure of its first 2 colonies there, a more determined effort was initiated by King James I of England, who let the Virginia Company establish a colony at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. 2 years later, a flotilla of 7 ships left England with several hundred settlers, food, and supplies to relieve the colony of Jamestown. However, the flotilla was broken up by a storm. One ship, Sea Venture, landed on Bermuda's reef and reached the shore safely, with all 151 of its passengers surviving. While there, they started a new settlement and built 2 small ships, Deliverance and Patience, to sail on to Jamestown. Bermuda was now claimed for the English crown. On the 10th of May 1610, the remaining survivors of Sea Venture sailed on to Jamestown. The Virginia Company's Admiral, George Somers, returned to Bermuda with the Patience to obtain food for the starving Jamestown settlers but died in Bermuda. The Patience instead sailed for England. In 1612, the English began settlement of the archipelago, officially named Virginiola, with arrival of the ship the Plough. New London was settled that year and designated as the colony's first capital. It is the oldest continually inhabited English town in the New World. In 1615, the colony, which had been renamed the Somers Isles in commemoration of Sir George Somers, was passed on to a new company, the Somers Isles Company, as Bermudians settled the Carolina colony and contributed to establishing other English colonies in the Americas. Several other locations were named after the archipelago. During this period, the first enslaved people were held and trafficked to the islands. These were a mixture of enslaved native Africans who were trafficked to